My senior year in college, while most of my peers were preparing for graduation, studying for their final exams, and just hanging out with friends, I was hiding in my apartment, contemplating suicide. While my peers were trying to determine where their graduation festivities would be held with family and friends, I was standing in the middle of a courtroom being sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. At the age of 23, I self-surrendered to the Federal Correctional Institution in Tallahassee, Florida. I traded out my street clothes for brown khakis, and my personal identity became known as inmate 25379-018. Going to prison taught me how to stop, drop, and roll. It taught me how to put out the fire of my adversity and turn it into an opportunity. That opportunity came in the form of reframing how I saw myself, owning up to my mistakes, and through the power of second chances. So going to prison caused me to stop. Everything that I knew, good or bad, would forever change. Everything that I knew, good or bad, was about to change. But before I begin, let me share with you what led me to prison. Poor confidence, low self-esteem, being a people pleaser, thinking that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't pretty enough, led me to make decisions or make a decision repeatedly over and over and over. But going to prison caused me to stop, and it allowed me to reframe myself. I became a student and a teacher while incarcerated. I used the time to get to know who Yolanda was, realizing that the mistakes I made, I didn't have to. And that I knew that when I did get out of prison, that I can be somebody, that I can continue to succeed. Going to prison allowed me to realize that while in the process of reframing myself, that I had to think about who I was and what I was. I had to think about how I perceived me. Who was Yolanda? That's what prison allowed me to do. That's how I was able to stop. Everything that was going on stopped. While incarcerated, I had to drop all the baggage. I had to own up to my mistakes. My mother used to always say, you make your bed hard, you lie in it. And I did for 3 years. I can remember the drive to Tallahassee. But before we left, I said to her, I said to my mother, I said, I don't want to go. I wasn't a bad person, I just made a simple mistake. Right where you are, I want you to think for a moment. I want you to think about a time that you did something very stupid. I want you to think about, not now, but a time where you could have been caught. And imagine going to prison for a stupid decision. You're not a bad person. You just made a decision, a bad one. And before we left to go to Tallahassee, I said to my mother, I said, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I wasn't that bad of a person. And she said to me, Yolanda, you have to go. Because if you don't, those people are going to come and get you. And those people that she was referring to was the U.S. Marshals. She did not want her daughter to go to prison. She didn't want any of her kids to go to prison. But I had to own up to my mistakes. I made my bed hard, and I had to lie in it. While I was incarcerated, I knew that people make bad decisions. I didn't think that people go to prison for bad decisions, but I'm grateful for the opportunity, as weird as it may sound, that I went to prison. Because in my incarceration, during my incarceration, is where I saw how the system, the criminal justice system, worked. I graduated from high school. I went to college. Remember, I was a senior in college before I went to prison. And I was very shocked and surprised at the number of women inmates that are incarcerated that do not have a high school diploma or a GED. But as I continued on throughout my sentence, I was able to roll forward and prepare myself for the future. I've never been the type to take no for an answer, and I've always had a tenacious personality. And I would use that as I prepare for my release. How I was able to roll with the punches is because prison taught me how to be a fighter, not a physical fighter, but it taught me how the bad times don't always last. One of the challenges that I faced when I was released from prison was employment. Nobody wanted to hire a convicted felon. So after applying for nearly 200 jobs, filling out 200 job applications, physically and online, I was finally able to find a job because someone believed in giving someone like me a second chance. I worked at this place for almost 5 years under the direction of a human resource director, Miss Becky. Miss Becky believed in second chances, and she schooled me and she educated me. And it was while I was working with her is when I decided to go back to school. It wasn't easy. It was very challenging because now I have to check yes on an application that asks the question, have you ever been convicted of a felony? But I did not allow that to deter me or stop me. And in fact, that's where I created my motto, to use your adversity to create an opportunity. I'm now married, have 2 small kids, currently in a doctoral program, about to graduate. Prison was a stepping stone that I used to position me to be able to fight adversity. When I got out of prison, there was no one in my immediate area that I can identify with who had overcame a challenge. So after I wrote my first book, Consequences, it became a platform and a tool that I use to highlight the challenges and the consequences of what happens when you make a bad decision, but also to share and to encourage other formerly incarcerated individuals and also those individuals that are being released back into society that you can use your adversity and create an opportunity. And that's exactly what I did. I used the adversity of being incarcerated and created an opportunity of a speaking platform where I encourage and I inspire and I motivate individuals. Today, as you think about my talk, not just the fact that I've been incarcerated, not the fact that I was incarcerated at 23, but I want you to think about these things. It's been almost 11 years that I've been out of prison, but about 5.5 of those years I kept hid because I was embarrassed and shamed. I now have a voice and I now have a platform to inspire, to encourage, and to motivate. But putting out the fire for me is about taking that adversity and turning it into an opportunity. So I leave this with you today. Wherever you are in your position, wherever you are in your life, I want you to think about the power of second chances. I want you to think about someone that may come up into your establishment for employment. I want you to think about someone who may need that second chance. And I want you to reevaluate yourself and say, do I have the power to put out the fire in their adversity? I want you to think about the challenges that formerly incarcerated individuals have in the stereotype that we are given. Not every convicted felon did something horrible. Sometimes we made a very bad mistake. So I ask that you all today, as you listen to my story, or if you encounter someone else who has been incarcerated, to not be so quick to judge and ask yourself this: do you have the power to help them put out the fire in their adversity? Thank you.